Yeah. Anyways, what I was saying about George Soros is like he's always been to me like this fantastical figure of conspiracy theories, and he was never anyone that I considered or even like thought about as being a real fucking person because I never really did the research. I just sort of heard of him from these fringe type people or these fringe conspiracy theory type people until I watched an Oliver Stone documentary, which is how I learned about the Hillary Clinton, and the DNC being involved with the Ukraine, and how Hillary uh, was a part of this NGO that was funded by George Soros, and how they were all connected to the Ukraine and the current president of the Ukraine trying to interfere with the election in 2016. And it's like, wow, like this guy actually does fund these NGOs that are connected to the DNC, and they really didn't want Trump to be president, and they obviously did want Hillary to be president.
No shit.
And
I mean, yeah. That's something that's not even a secret. I mean, where the larger agenda is not a secret. George Soros has been very public for 20 or 25 years about his vision of the open society. He calls it the Open Society Foundation, which might differ from a lot of our. He's a centrist. He's a systemist. Like he believes in working with the systems and whatever. And the Clintons, of course, are what they are. And so I mean, so it ought not be surprising. And in terms of things that have occurred that George Soros might be responsible for, the Clintons might be responsible for, that's small beans right there. That kind of that's it gets much worse than that.
so you think George Soros doesn't even hold a candlestick to Peter Thiel in terms of sinister sinister intentions and malevolence interfering with
So
government and
I couldn't say, simply because I have not, although I've been aware of George Soros for a long time, uh, I've never specialized in him.
right.
And so, although occasionally I've had people explain to me what their concerns are, and Agenda 21 and all these different things, and I've had to kind of sort through a little bit here and there, what is legit and what is not. And I've seen him as someone who, you know, probably, after the Cold War, was heavily involved in trying to democratize the countries that had been some of the former Soviet countries that he had emerged from, that he emerged from, and also, yeah, obviously, I mean, he's a the kind of figure that comes within the traditions of the American bipartisan consensus. He's just for me, he's a very typical figure in that regard, whether it be the CIA, heads, or Nixon, or Carter, or trilateral commission types, or the Clintons, or George Bush Sr. He's just I've always actually kind of been I've never really understood why he himself has been uh, obviously, I mean, he's a major funder of the DNC and that kind of thing. But it's just he just doesn't strike me as that much different from the Rockefellers or whatever. I just don't I've just never seen
Right.
the urgency. The exceptions. I mean, he's like the Koch brothers, who I'm also not that interested in. Because the Koch brothers are pretty straightforward, and again, also because the Koch brothers are well known and George Soros is well known. Whereas Peter Thiel and Palantir and the events he's been involved in, because Peter Thiel's companies specialize in information and disinformation, they have been able to do a better job of ensuring that, number one, a lot of the right, like libertarians, think he's a libertarian, which he's not, and number two, that a lot of the left have never heard of him, and that number three, both the Republicans and Democrats, as they did back in 2011, will protect him. In 2015, as came out in the Podesta emails, this is something that's never been reported in any outlet that I happened to come across when I got around looking through them when I got out of prison. We learned that, number one, we know that the Trump campaign approached Palantir to assist with them in the election, and we know that they did. because Peter Thiel wanted him to. What's not been reported is that the Clinton campaign also approached Palantir for help in the election. Both parties know how powerful Palantir is. What Podesta did not realize is that although Alexander Karp, who's the CEO of Palantir for a while, although he is a centrist Democrat kind of thing, or center left, or a little bit whatever, Peter Thiel is not. Peter Thiel calls the shots there. That's why the Democrats didn't get help from Palantir, whereas Republicans got a lot of help from Palantir and Peter Thiel, both in a public sense and in a clandestine, illicit sense involving Facebook, Cambridge Analytica, the data mining scandal, General Flynn, some of the companies like Archimedes Global that we had looked into, Stratfor, which met with General Flynn. It's also one of the reasons why Mueller, and Democrats and so forth, when they went and investigated the election and all that. And remember that Mueller commission was not just to investigate the Russian activity; it was to investigate all activity, all illicit activity interfering with the 2016 election. And the reason, and in 2017, the Mueller people leaked to the Washington Post and a few other outlets that they were now looking at a couple of firms. One was White Canvas Group, which was part led by General Flynn. White Canvas Group happened to be one of the firms that we had looked into in 2011, 2012. It was involved in the Romos Coin project that I wrote about in The Guardian in 2011. And but beyond that, you never heard about White Canvas Group again. In fact, you heard very little in the Mueller Commission or the press about Palantir, about Archimedes Global, about these firms, because the Mueller Commission was invested in protecting the fact that they enabled these same people and these same companies, that they defended these companies, including White Canvas Group, run and Aaron Barr, my old arch enemy before Peter Thiel, that they were the ones who protected these groups and went after, sometimes illegally, those of us who were going after these groups. And so after 2017, after that brief period, you see nothing about Flynn's involvement. You see nothing about White Canvas Group, Palantir, Stratfor, because here we have Mueller was a Republican traditionally, but of course the Democrats were rooting for him, thinking because they believed the FBI was really going to get at the bottom of the election interference, because the FBI has always been a great defender of democracy. So it's again, so what I'm saying is that what we're up against is a citrus thing where there are very few Republicans who won't help to protect this secret apparatus and their own selves, their own involvement in it, and very few Democrats who won't. And so the good news, I guess, for those who think the Democrats are the bigger threat, well, there's plenty of those to go after down the line. And the good news for those who think the Republicans are the bigger threat, well, there's plenty of those too. And then we can sort out the other bullshit later on. But ultimately, this system and those who have supported its corruption, who have been caught over and over again, and the stuff that we've put out that's come out elsewhere, and the stuff that's going to come out in ways that can be hard to ignore next year.